Here are the top stories for today, May 5, 2021. Another brand of COVID-19 vaccine gets emergency use authority from the government. Better safe than sorry, returning Filipinos from India will undergo strict quarantine protocol once flights to Manila resume. 7 Chinese vessels sighted in the West Philippine Sea dispersed after being asked to leave by the Philippine Coast Guard. And a university choir is keeping music alive amid the pandemic. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. Our top story for today, another brand of COVID-19 vaccine has been given an emergency use authority or EUA by the Food and Drug Administration. This is the COVID-19 vaccine of American pharmaceutical firm Moderna. The jab has an efficacy rate of over 94% in preventing COVID-19 disease and is said to be 80% effective to those who are 18 years of age and above, as well as those with comorbidities. Moderna is the 7th vaccine to secure an EUA from the FDA. Other vaccines include Pfizer-BioNTech, AstraZeneca, Sinovac, Gamaleya, Janssen, and Bharat Biotech. Senior citizens in Muntinlupa City were inoculated with Sputnik V vaccine as the city government receives their share of the 3,000 doses of the jabs. Among the first to receive the vaccine is Crisanta Barceliana. Muntinlupa City Representative Rufi Biazon thanked the government for bringing the Russian-made vaccine to the city. MMDA Chair Benjamin Abalos, who was also present at the event, says the vaccination game plan in the National Capital Region, which recorded the highest number of COVID-19 cases, hopefully ensures better times ahead for the Philippine economy. Muntinlupa Mayor Jaime Fresnedi said members of the priority group will be inoculated at the Hospital ng Muntinlupa and Asian Hospital, as these hospitals have storage facilities that can store the vaccines at the required temperature of -18 degrees Celsius. Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez Jr. said the public is beginning to accept the need to get vaccinated against COVID-19. Galvez said, despite some negative media reports about the vaccines, he is thankful for the enormous acceptance of the people on the jabs. Galvez said the public acceptance is among the 3 parameters that the government is set for the successful vaccination rollout. The other 2 are ensuring that there will be no wastage of vaccines and there should be proper management of adverse effects. Galvez thanked private partners, particularly mall owners, for relentlessly extending their support to the country's vaccination program. The government is exerting all efforts to prevent vaccine spoilage and wastage of COVID-19 vaccines. This as the jobs require a sub-zero storage facility and sensitive handling logistics. Vaccine czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said the government contracted a third party that will handle the storage requirement of the vaccines. He also said that the government has been conducting a series of inspections and evaluations of storage facilities in various LGUs to see if they are qualified to handle the different types of vaccines. Volunteer nurses from Zamboanga are set to augment the existing medical frontliners in Metro Manila. DOH Region 9 Director Dr. Joshua Brillante said the latest batch of volunteers are scheduled to undergo orientation and RT-PCR tests this week and will travel to Manila on Sunday, May 9. They will be deployed to Jose R. Reyes Memorial Medical Center in Manila. Quarantine rules in the country would be lifted once the situation improves. This as President Rodrigo Duterte admitted it is not easy to prolong the strict health and quarantine protocols to curb the spread of the coronavirus in the country.
Ibig sabihin po ng Presidente, pag marami-rami na ang nabakunahan at pag napadami na natin yung ating mga ICU beds lalong-lalo na at napakita natin na napababa na natin yung pagkalat ng virus, pwede na po talaga tayo magbukas muli ng ating ekonomiya.
According to the OCTA research, the enhanced community quarantine imposed in the National Capital Region is bearing fruit after a continuous downward trend of COVID-19 cases. OCTA research fellow Dr. Guido David said the average number of cases decreased by 36% since April, from 5,500 per day to 3,000 active cases per day. Nationwide, the average number of cases is now less than 8,000 per day compared to 10,000 cases at its peak. He said the effect of the extended MECQ, which started on May 1, may be visible by next week. David said the OCTA research might recommend the further easing of the community quarantine status next week when its effects start to show. Malacanang clarified there is no order from President Rodrigo Duterte to stop the setting up of community pantries in the country. This as the president announced during his talk to the people on Monday that it is safer for the public to wait for government assistance from their homes instead of going out to avail of free food items. In an online press briefing, presidential spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque said President Duterte is merely worried that makeshift food pantries could be super spreader venues for the coronavirus infections. In line with the directive of the president, the Department of the Interior and local government has crafted guidelines on the operations of community pantries to avoid the possible spike in COVID-19 cases in the country.
Hindi naman po sinasabi ni Presidente na itigil ang community pantry. Ang worry lang po niya yung mga nababalita na nga po na nagiging super spreaders po itong mga community pantries. So ang pakiusap lang po natin, makipag-ugnayan po sa lokal na pamahalaan at siguraduhin na may social distancing at tumutupad sa iba pang mga minimum health standards ang mga community pantries.
Returning Filipinos from India will undergo strict quarantine protocols in the country once flights from the Asian nation to Manila resume. Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. said this measure will be imposed to ensure that the double mutant variant, which is first detected in India, would not spread in the country. About 3,000 Filipinos are residing in India, most of whom are housewives and professionals in managerial positions. At present, there are at least 73 Filipinos who have contracted the disease, but the majority are said to have only mild or moderate cases. Philippine Ambassador to India Ramon Bagatsing Jr. said around 60 to 70 Filipinos are requesting repatriation from the embassy, although they would have to wait until flights finally resume. In our foreign news, India's economy has been dragged down further by the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic with 400,000 cases per day. Once again, offices have been closed and supplementary businesses depending on corporate employees like the food and hospitality sector have been hit hard. Most industries and the manufacturing sector are either shut or working at a much lesser capacity. Last month, global rating agency Moody's said that the targeted curbs imposed by the Indian government will mitigate the second wave's overall adverse impact on the Indian economy. Meanwhile, India's rating agency ICRA had forecast that the country's GDP would grow by 10 to 10.5% in the financial year 2021 to 2022, but the present wave will dampen its recovery pace. Meanwhile, India's COVID-19 tally crossed the 20 million mark, reaching 20,282,833 on Tuesday, as 357,229 new cases were registered during the past 24 hours. Another 3,449 deaths were reported since Monday morning, taking the death toll to 222,408. The COVID-19 figures continue to peak in the country, but the federal government has ruled out imposing a complete lockdown. India has so far vaccinated over 158 million people since the country kicked off its inoculation drive in January. Here is a look at COVID-19 figures worldwide. Still to come, 7 Chinese vessels sighted in the West Philippine Sea dispersed after being asked to leave by the Philippine Coast Guard. Meanwhile, we will bring you to places where you can get fresh fruits and vegetables through the Kadiwa Community Pantry. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Pangalagaan ang sarili laban sa Coronavirus Disease 2019. Hanggat maaari, umiwas sa mataong lugar. Iwasang hawakan ang ilong at bibig, maging malinis sa katawan at ugaliin ang wastong paghuhugas ng kamay. Takpan ang ilong at bibig kung uubo o babahing. Umiwas sa mga taong nagpapakita ng sintomas ng coronavirus disease gaya ng lagnat, ubo at sipon. Magsuot ng face mask kung kinakailangan. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The palace stated that the strong words of Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin against China is not part of the Philippine government's policy. This amid the country's dispute with China over disputes on the West Philippine Sea. Locsin has made a harsh remark against China due to the continued presence of Chinese vessels in the West Philippine Sea. He also questioned China's sincerity because of its incursions into the Philippine waters despite its friendship with the Philippines. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said Locsin's statement against China is part of his free speech. Locsin already apologized to Chinese Ambassador Huang Xilian for his harsh remarks, but clarified that it was only meant for China's Foreign Minister and State Councilor Wang Yi.
Kami po ay nagkausap ni Secretary Locsin at pinaalam po niya sa akin na personal siyang nag-apologize po sa Chinese Ambassador at ang mga nabanggit naman po niyang salita ay dahil lang sa mga bagay-bagay na naging dahilan para uminit ang kanyang ulo. The President did not ask him to apologize, but Secretary Locsin did it on his own.
A Philippine Coast Guard ship faced off against several Chinese maritime militia ships nested at Sabina Shoal inside the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. The Coast Guard released a video of BRP Cabra, a Coast Guard vessel accompanied by 2 vessels from the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources while conducting maritime patrols. National Security Advisor Hermogenes Esperon said they challenged via radio the 7 Chinese ships lined up in formation. The Chinese vessels did not respond and dispersed after the radio challenge. The Chinese ships were found in the Philippine EEZ last April 27. BRP Carba spotted 5 more Chinese ships at Sabina Shoal on April 29, but the ships left as she approached. Sabina Shoal is located 130 nautical miles west of Puerto Princesa, Palawan, and east of Ayungin Shoal. A Kadiwa community pantry opens in Baguio City, while farmers in Batac, ILOCOS, NORTE show off their products in a Dapayan challenge. More on these in today's Provincial Roundup from Joyce Cudis.
The Department of Agriculture in the Cordillera held on Wednesday a Kadiwa community pantry at the Bureau of Plant Industry in Baguio City. Assorted highland vegetables like baggy beans, sayote, cabbage, potato, carrots, tomato, lettuce, cauliflower, sayote, eggs, young corn, and rice were given away for free to the public. A separate line and tent are designated for the senior citizens. In ILOCOS Norte, the Dapayan or Villa story made a comeback in Batac City as farmers set up spaces to promote and sell their products. The city government hosted a search for the best Dapayani Manolon contest, which was one of the highlights of the 12th Farmers Festival in the city last May 1 and 2. Mayor Albert Chua has lauded the efforts of all the 30 participating farming barangays as he challenged everyone to sustain their dapayan and use it to promote their own barangays and market their produce. Meanwhile, the DA, together with the Department of Trade and Industry in Region 11, launched the Kadiwa Descuento Caravan on May 3 to bring farmers' produce closer to the workers. The initiative is in partnership with the Association of Labor Unions, Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, and Unifruti Tropical Philippines Incorporated. The Kadiwa Descuento Caravan will run every 15th and 30th of the month. The DA said it aims to highlight its Grow Local, Buy Local, Eat Local campaign. For the PNA Newsroom, I am Joyce Cudis.
The Department of Agriculture has ordered the stricter implementation of border inspection and control procedures to ensure an optimum level of food safety on all imported food items. Section 12 of the Food Safety Act of 2013 provides that imported food shall undergo cargo inspection and clearance procedures by the DA and the Department of Health at the first port of entry. The DA and the DOH inspection must be done before the assessment for tariff and other charges by the Bureau of Customs. The Bureau of Animal Industry, Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, and Bureau of Plant Industry are also told to review and revise their methods to ensure its smooth implementation of the first border inspection system. Agriculture Secretary William Dar said it is the duty of the state to protect and promote the right to health of the people, as well as protect them from trade malpractice and hazardous products. Local government units have distributed 74% of the 22.9 billion peso financial aid from the national government for areas placed under Enhanced Community Quarantine or ECQ. Interior Secretary Eduardo Año said 17 billion pesos of the total amount earmarked for the cash aid in the National Capital Region plus bubble have reached the beneficiaries. This translates to 17 million beneficiaries out of the total 22.9 billion beneficiaries, or a total of 74.35%. Año also said they received over 59,000 complaints on alleged anomalies in the aid distribution, with about 24,000 resolved. The deadline for the distribution of ECQ aid was earlier extended until May 15. Año assured charges will be filed against local chief executives who failed to prosecute violators of mass gatherings. He warned that the PNP will strictly enforce the law against mass gatherings and will be ready to make arrests even against non-complying local leaders. Up next, low-income Filipinos will soon have their own bank account with the help of the Philippine ID system. And a university choir is keeping music alive amid the pandemic. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Alamin ang mga dapat gawin sa lugar ng trabaho laban sa Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ang mga kumpanya ay dapat magbigay ng face mask sa kanilang mga empleyado. Bukod dito, magbigay kaalaman din patungkol sa COVID-19. Siguraduhin malinis ang kapaligiran. Maglagay ng sabon at hand sanitizer sa mga palikuran. Siguraduhin ligtas at nalutong maigi ang mga pagkain sa kantina. Obserbahan ang kalusugan ng mga empleyado at katrabaho. Kung sakali man na mayroon silang sintomas ng coronavirus disease, gaya ng lagnat, ubot sipon at hirap sa paghinga, ay agad ipasuri sa doktor. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. The Philippine Identification System, the National ID System, is seen to push for financial inclusion and secure social protection. Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Carl Kenrick Chua said on Monday that Land Bank of the Philippines will co-locate in all PhilSys registration sites with the goal of opening bank accounts for all low-income Filipinos by the end of 2021. Chua said it will also hasten the provision of social protection services, such as the distribution of financial assistance during calamities or any crisis. The PhilSys project will likewise help in the national vaccination program. Some 33.4 million Filipinos have already registered for the Step 1 process. CHUA, meanwhile, assured system improvements online registration following a technical glitch during its pilot run on April 30. He said the government is currently in talks with international and local experts to improve the PhilSys online portal. Negros Occidental has announced the opening of a new laboratory as parts of efforts to boost the province's testing capabilities against COVID-19. More on this and other news from the provinces from Chris Crismundo.
The COVID-19 testing capabilities of Bacolod City and the Negros Occidental Provincial Government got a boost with the opening of another molecular laboratory and the arrival of additional equipment this week. In Negros Occidental, Governor Eugenio Jose Lacson sees a faster turnaround time for test results with the opening of the COVID-19 molecular laboratory in Valladolid town. Lacson thanked the support and cooperation of local officials and partners in the health sector that paved the way for the establishment of the facility. Meanwhile, Mayor Evelio Leonardia said the city government received an RT-PCR machine donated by Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte. He said the RT-PCR machine will augment and speed up the city's testing capacity as the surge of cases continues. In Zamboanga City, Mayor Maria Isabel Climaco Salazar has ordered a 15-day extension on the temporary closure of beach resorts and similar establishments to curb community transmission of COVID-19. This amid the continued surge of cases in the city, which has reached a total of 6,739 as of Monday. Salazar's directive prohibits all individuals from gathering in beaches and inland resorts to prevent the unnecessary congregation of people. Meanwhile, the LAOAG city government plans to avail a 70 million peso loan for the exclusive purchase of COVID-19 vaccines for its people. Vice Mayor Vicentito Lazo confirmed this after the 11th Sangguniang Panlunsod authorized Mayor Michael Marcos Quillon to seek the said amount from any government lending institutions. The vaccines to be purchased by the city will give priority to the tricycle drivers, vendors, authorized persons outside residents, urban poor, persons with disabilities, those in the working class, and other segments of the society. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Crismundo.
A former rebel-turned-peace advocate in Bohol warned the public about the strategy of the CPP-NPA to survive by feeding the people's discontent. Virgilio Quisto said, preying on people who feel helpless is the expertise of CPP-NPA for them to rise in arms against the government. Among the issues raised to agitate the people against governments evolved on social issues, including land reform, palm oil, poverty, and alleged militarization. He, however, said no matter how good the agitation is, somehow the government can now easily win over the people. Quisto joined the CPP-NPA in Surigao del Sur in 1987. His family was one of hundreds of land reform beneficiaries who received land titles during the service caravan in San Vicente Village in Trinidad, Bohol on April 27. Amid the pandemic, when everyone is prone to despair, a university choir took the chance to bring hope by joining an online competition. The University of Asia and Pacific Chorale recently joined the 3rd BCS World Virtual Choir Festival hosted by the Bandung Choral Society in Indonesia. UA&P chorale performed its rendition of Ang Tren, composed by Sonder Choi and based on the literary piece by Jose Corazon de Jesus. Since members of the musical group could not meet to rehearse, they had to resort to online practice sessions. Yet, they were able to come up with a beautiful music video. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. Another brand of COVID-19 vaccine gets emergency use authority from the government. Better safe than sorry, returning Filipinos from India will undergo strict quarantine protocol once flights to Manila resume. 7 Chinese vessels sighted in the West Philippine Sea dispersed after being asked to leave by the Philippine Coast Guard. And a university choir is keeping music alive amid the pandemic. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day. Stay safe, everyone.